Yo, it's been a while. Let's talk about dividends for the month of July. I got not as quite as good of a month as last month, but it was still awesome. And awesome enough that I'm coming to you from my very own sim racing rig. I got a sim racing rig, not necessarily from money from dividends, but you'll see that my dividends covered the vast majority of the cost. So let's get into how much money I made, what was bought and sold this month, and how much that equates to in terms of a full-time employee earning me an income. In terms of what I bought this month in July, I only got $5 worth of stock. Thank you for a referral. I always buy Coca-Cola with that, and you'll see that our very first dividend this month is Coca-Cola, and we're getting $2.48 from it. So your guys' referrals will slowly amount to a snowball of unrelenting force that will just create more and more dividends. We also got our old friends AGNC, MO, Trin, Acre, PSEC, RC, RITM. A lot of these companies are either things that people use as vices in terms of Coca-Cola and MO, which is a tobacco company, or they're real estate companies, which probably aren't doing terribly well right now, or there are these other ones down here lower on the list that I have a lot more money invested in, hence the much bigger dividends, like the JEPs of the world and the SPs of the world. So JEPQ, JEPI, SPHD, and SPYI are the vast majority of our dividends that we got this month. Thankfully, they're monthly payers, and so they show up here and do good things for us. Now, last month was a quarter end, and so it meant that we had a new high score of the most dividends we've ever gotten, which obviously we're not going to accomplish in a middle month in between quarter ends. So last month we got $226 in dividends in a single month. This month we got a paltry $130.71. What that equates to is a monthly return of 0.43%. That's just for the month. If you extrapolate that out for the whole year, 5.11%. So still better than a high yield savings account, which was kind of the point of this money. This was, and maybe sort of is, our emergency fund. And I totally believe in the traditional wisdom of have 3 to 6 months of living expenses ready for you, in case something happens with your job, with your health, with your house, those kinds of things. You have this money to draw on, and it was killing me that it was sitting there in cash. And so hence I started this dividend investing journey. I thought, look, worst case scenario, the money stays exactly the same. It's available to us, that's fine. Best case scenario, I beat a high yield savings account, because otherwise, why wouldn't you just put it there? So thankfully, the trend is generally working. Doesn't work every single month, but right now it is. Now, if this was a full-time employee, and I was paying them hourly, I guess it's really the other way around. If it was a full-time employee, how much money would they be making me hourly? Less than $1 an hour still, $0.82 per hour. But an even better metric than that is how many burritos would this buy me each month? If I got the same amount and I wanted a burrito that was about $9, this would buy me 14.5 burritos. That's pretty amazing. If you've got 21, 25 working days per month, something like that, that's almost a burrito every day for lunch. So we're getting up there in terms of burritos. Where we're not quite getting up there is in a fraction of a race car. This only gets us barely a 0.5% of a race car, which means it would take us 191 months of waiting at this rate to buy us a relatively cheap but sorted and reliable race car, 25 grand, which translates to about 16 years of waiting to buy a real race car. Now, a new metric I can add for this month is how long would you have to wait in terms of dividends to buy a sim rig like this? If you're a video game nerd like me and a driving nerd like me, we combine forces and become sim racing nerds. I've only had this for a few weeks now, but it's been a lot of fun so far. Let me show you what I got. First off, the overall thing that everything is mounted to is called an Alpine TRX. This is a cockpit that's built by a company called Track Racer. The things that you actually touch I have are from a company called Fanatec, a GT DD Pro, a Gran Turismo wheel, another wheel stored up here that's just for funsies that I can use whenever I want, a shifter, all 3 pedals, load cell kit, and a nice BenQ curved monitor. You won't be surprised to find out that I have a spreadsheet for sim racing also. Had I bought all of this stuff brand new, instead of buying it from Facebook Marketplace lightly used, my estimate is that it would have cost $3,633 brand new as of today. I paid $1,600 in cash, which means I had a savings of $2,033. Of course, I can't leave well enough alone, and so I had to buy this extra wheel, which was $180. I bought a stronger clamp to hold the wheel in place so that it wouldn't fly off and disconnect and create a problem, which this current setup actually has. It's just a factory defect sort of a thing. 16 bucks. I bought extra fans because you get very hot sim racing. And then of course you've got to get the standard sim racing wireless keyboard because you sit here and you don't have access to the computer that's behind you with ugly cables in the corner. I apologize for that. And I'm actually home creating sort of a ventilation system for the back of the seat. So maybe you'll see that in a future video. If you want to see it, then comment down below and say ducts. because I'm going to create this hodgepodge of computer cooling fans and ductwork that then blows onto my back to keep me cool during all of this. Of course, I have a spreadsheet for that part too. My total parts cost will be about $57, and even for that, I use credit card points, so it's $0 out of pocket to get this cooling situation all done for me. So all in, as of today, I've spent $1,993 on this overall sim rig. If we were going to save up for that with the dividends that we got from last month, let's see how long it would take. Let's write a quick little formula. Equals $1,993 divided by the amount that we got in dividends this month equals 15.25 months. Now, one thing I wanted to say this month is that I've been kind of re-researching the world of personal finance. I've been listening to a lot of videos and podcasts. I've been digging out old books that I started to read and didn't ever finish. And I just kind of wanted to readdress my beliefs around what it means to be financially independent, what it looks like for people to realistically do this with a regular salary in today's world, with housing expenses really high, with food expenses quite high. Gas isn't that bad right now, but I'm sure it'll be bad again soon because it always goes up and down, right? And I wanted to think if I needed to kind of change my perspective going forward as far as how you handle money and what I would recommend as somebody who thinks about this with you. I'm by no means a financial planner, and this is for educational purposes, but as I rehashed everything this year, I thought about what it looks like for us to have things like this spreadsheet where we get really into the weeds and we compare what a company's financials are and try and find somebody who's going to pay us increasing dividends over time, because the idea of cash flow is really fun, and what we can do with it in terms of buying a race car or a sim rig or whatever else just gets us really excited, and it helps us to be motivated to invest. I'm all for that still, but I think that sometimes this is the sort of sexy and exciting part of investing, and we overlook the more important things, like making sure you actually have cash on hand to cover an expense. Apparently, whenever you survey people, something like 50% of Americans can't come up with $1,000 or $2,000 if there's an emergency in their life. If you're foregoing something like an emergency fund so that you can do something that's relatively silly, like dividend invest or pick single stocks, then we're missing the point together. What we need to do is have a solid financial footing before we go into the realm of play money, going out and picking individual stocks and playing with dividends and things like that. If we can't cover a health emergency, our basic deductible when it comes to our health insurance, if we're not getting our 401k match at our employer, which is a 100%, money on money return for you, you're never going to get a 100% return with dividends. Best case, we're going to get 15% or something like that. Normal case, we're going to get 5, 6, 7, 8%. And so if we're overlooking these things that are either a huge liability for us or a 100% return for us just to go ahead and have some fun, I think we're missing the point. So I wanted to make sure that was in today's video as a bit of a caveat for you, so that you knew the kind of priorities that we should have when it comes to our money. Make sure your emergencies are things that won't wreck you before you get into a step like this. Make sure you're getting an employer match if you have that available to you at work, because it's a 100% return on your money this year. That's unheard of. And I would say even on top of that, make sure that you have at least a month or two of your living expenses saved up somewhere where it's easily reachable, that's not necessarily tied up in a dividend account. Like for us right now, if I'm totally transparent with what we're doing with our money, yeah, this started as our kind of emergency fund that then I thought, well, I'll just put it into Robinhood. We'll do some dividend playing. I'll be able to make some videos about it and learn about dividends together with you. And we'll do this experiment for a year or 2 years or however long it'll be. Well, wake up call, it's already been 2 years. And now, because of the way I think about investing, this money isn't money that I can touch anymore. So now I'm actually in the process of re-saving up an emergency fund that will actually remain in cash. That's going to be about 3 months of our living expenses, so that that can then sit there and be ready for us in case of a medical emergency, a house emergency, something like that. It's like in construction. Whenever you're going to build a building, the most important thing is to make sure that what the building is sitting on is stable. You can't build a skyscraper on a pile of sand. And if we're trying to do risky investments when it comes to dividends, picking single stocks, crypto, anything speculative, if we're doing that without those other things set up first to make sure we have a sure financial footing, then we're really putting the cart before the horse. I know it's like analogy on top of analogies right now. Sorry for that. It's also like if you had a burrito, but you had it wrapped in a wet, soggy tortilla. Everything in the burrito is going to fall out. That's your financial life and your well-being falling apart because you don't have a strong enough wrapper around it. Maybe that's also a bad analogy because you don't want like a chainmail tortilla because then it's not edible. But in terms of our financial world and our analogy, we do want something like a chainmail tortilla. You want something to be really, really rock solid. Because what that does is it's not going to allow anything to jeopardize your growth over time. You're not going to carry a credit card balance. You're not going to have high interest debt. You're going to pay off all that stuff. You're going to get all of that out of the way so that then if trouble comes, you can handle it with your emergency fund. And in the meantime, you're just growing and growing and growing your net worth. This is something I've seen work for us personally. I don't think that it was a special case. I think that this is just the way that the math works. If you want to learn more about that kind of thing and what it looked like for us and what I would do if I was going to restart investing, then watch some of my other videos. I'll link a couple here at the end of this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye.